the web series where I use IMDb to discover and talk about all different types of movies and TV shows, and have the people in front of and behind the camera not only make it all possible, but are somehow all interconnected. And on today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the Smurfs. And I have a very special guest joining me today. Her name is Benita Allen, and she's the first assistant director on the Smurfs. The Smurfs is a 2011 animation adventure comedy directed by Raja Gosnell. The movie is about a group of these little blue creatures who get chased away from their magical village by the evil Gargamel and find themselves in New York City at the home of Patrick and Grace Winslow. With the help of their new human friends, they have to find a way home and beat the evil Gargamel. One of my favorite parts about this movie is that it's live action, but also animation. And those are two amazing things, and they're packed into one movie, and it's so cool to see animated characters and real people interact with each other. I also love this movie because the Smurfs have their own little unique personalities that make them different, and that's what I love about the Smurfs. Some of my favorite characters are Jonathan Winters as Papa Smurf, Katy Perry as Smurfette, and Hank Azaria as the great evil Gargamel. Today, I'm honored to speak with Benita Allen, the first AD on the Smurfs and the Smurfs 2. She was the first AD on so many great movies and TV shows, including Charlotte's Web, Stuart Little, The Ring, Show Dogs, Heathers, and Pee-wee's Playhouse, and the soon-to-be-released Clifford the Big Red Dog. Now, without further ado, here's my interview with Benita Allen. You're a first assistant director.
Correct.
Tell me about your role, and are you on set for filming or more involved with like the pre-production?
So what the first assistant director does is we are given the script, and I break it down and I say how many days we're going to film and what days we're going to shoot what scene and how many actors and how many extras we need per scene, how many vehicles, how many helicopters, how many Marines invade the beach. Everyone is different, and so I organize all of that and create the master schedule. And then from there, we then start hiring the actors, knowing when those actors are going to work. And then once we begin filming, the first assistant director is basically the general on the set. We tell everybody what to do. So the director gets to direct the actors, and the assistant director runs the set, or runs the floor, as we like to say. Plus, I direct all the extras and all the vehicles and everything else. So
that's so cool. And
yeah.
How do you get started in being like an assistant director?
So my father was a film producer. And so I grew up in the business. I didn't want to be in the business, but I grew up in it. And then things change, life goes on. And then suddenly my brother, who was also an assistant, was an assistant director, was doing a movie and needed a PA, which is a production assistant, which is, the person that goes for this and goes for that. And we do, they're the ones that run around on the set. And so he hired me as a PA. And that was on a film called Motel Hell.
I haven't heard of that. That sounds like a cool movie, though.
Well, I think you may be a taste young for it. It's a horror film, but it's a very campy, silly horror film. Become a bit of a classic. It's so bad it's good. That's how it is. And that was my very first job as a PA. And then my next job as a PA was on a film called Police Academy.
It sounds familiar.
Now that is a funny film, and that was the beginning of, I think they made 7 of those police academies. So, and that's how it all began. So yeah.
Wow, that's so amazing.
It is. So a family business, as they say.
And it has to be like really challenging working on a movie like The Smurfs, where there's like part live action with like real actors, and then you have animated characters too.
Yep.
Can you talk about that experience and like how it was like?
Well, it's a challenge for everybody because let's start with the actors. So the actors, have nothing on the set to work with. So what we do on these kinds of, we call these hybrid animated films, what we do is we create, as the Smurfs, we made little maquettes, which are little tiny, exact the same size, because you know a Smurf is 3 apples high.
I didn't know.
You didn't know that?
No.
There you go. So we made exact replicas of every Smurf, Smurfette, Papa Smurf, all the Smurfs, and we had replicas on the set. And then we had 2 voice actors. One played all the male Smurfs and one played all the female Smurfs. And so what we would do is we would do a rehearsal with the maquettes, the little stand-ins, and we would then move them around the set. So wherever the Smurf went, we would move him in the rehearsal so that the actors learned where Papa Smurf was, where Smurfette was. And then when we filmed, when we rolled, we take all of the maquettes out, and then we use a laser pointer to say, oh, there's Papa Smurf. So and then the voice would, the on-set voice would say the lines of Papa Smurf and Smurfette. And so that helps the actors so that they can be in character and they hear actors' voices and they can act against it. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult for camera because when a Smurf is walking across the set, how fast does a Smurf move? So the camera has to follow, but how do you know how fast the Smurf moves? So again, the rehearsal with the maquettes shows us the speed. We rehearse with the camera, and then there's nothing there on the day. The camera just follows the air. There's nothing. And then we do a couple of different speeds just to make sure the Smurf might be running or he might be hopping or whatever Smurfs like to do. So that was for camera. And so it's, you know, it's a different way of making a movie, that's for sure.
You get like so many different things. Like you get a part to work on like animation, but like you also get to work on like live action. So it's kind of like all in one.
That's right. And I just finished a movie last year called Clifford the Big Red Dog.
I saw that. I can't wait to see that. I would like grown up like reading the books and stuff and like watching like little snippets of stuff with it, and it sounds really cool.
It is very cool, but it's a lot harder to work with a 12-foot dog than it is with a 3-apple high Smurf.
Yeah.
So, but the same philosophy, you know, we created a big maquette and just had 2 guys run around in like a giant Chinese dragon.
Are the actors like so they're given something to look at, right? Like
yeah.
3 apples, or you said it's the height of 3 apples. It's like a little Smurf.
Yeah.
So how does it work to put like the animated characters in? Do you like know how they do that?
So that's all the visual effects department, and that's all post-production. So my job as the first AD is to get the movie filmed. Mm-hmm. But once we finished our very last day of shooting and we cut, my role is then done. And so then we hand the film off to editorial, and then editorial hands it off to post-production visual effects department, and they start the animation process.
Do you have a favorite Smurf?
Oh, well, I have to say that Clumsy had a very special place in my heart because he was so cute and so clumsy. So yes, I think it had to be Clumsy.
Mm-hmm. Is there a Smurf that you most relate to?
I think I most related to Papa Smurf in terms of being, you know, the one to give wisdom on the set and to look around the set, and I look at all my crew members and I'm like, oh, we shouldn't be doing that. That's a really bad idea. Oh, that's a good idea. So I think I related most to Papa Smurf.
Yeah, mine too. I love Smurfette. Actually, one year, for Halloween, when I was, I think maybe about 3 or 4, I dressed up as Smurfette for Halloween. But I do remember, I also like Clumsy a lot because he's just really kind of like the big goofy guy in the film. So I really like how the characters all interact with their different personalities. Is one of my favorite parts of the Smurfs.
I think so. And did you watch both films or did you just watch one?
I've watched the Smurfs too.
And which film did you prefer, one or two, just out of curiosity?
Um, that's hard. They're both good because I think I liked how they did the Smurfs too, of how they kind of had a good storyline for it of how taking Smurfette and how she also like how she now has like almost like her sister and brother because
Right.
also made by Gargamel. But I kind of like the first one a lot, but I still love the second. But I think I'd have to choose the first.
Okay, good. And did you ever watch the third?
The one, the Smurfs Lost Village.
Yeah, yes, the animated version.
Have.
That was very different. I thought the tone changed. So it was a different kind of Smurf movie.
Yeah. It was cool though. I liked it. I liked all the Smurf movies.
So you're a Smurf aficionado.
Yeah. And do you have any memorable moments or experiences from the set that you remember?
Um, Gosh, I think there was a number of memorable moments. Shooting at FAO Schwartz, which of course is no longer there, but being in that incredible toy store in the middle of the night for 5 nights. And we were filming there because it was a working store. We had to go there during the night and pretend it was day. So we had all these lights beaming in to the store, and we're creating daylight. And I remember our two Smurf actors taking two of the Smurfs and playing on the big piano.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was very cool. So that was a very memorable moment, watching the Smurfs run up and down the big piano from Big. I think we were shooting in Paris on Smurfs 2, and that was amazingly cool, being up at Notre Dame, which is the big cathedral that just burned down, unfortunately,
Yeah.
and being up in the rooftop with the Smurfs and Gargamel. That's a memorable moment for me, to be able to be somewhere so beautiful and iconic and still making a Smurf movie. So kind of cool.
Like you said, actually, you're talking about Big, and I interviewed Mercedes Rule, who plays.
I saw that. I did. I watched that. That was very good. I think you're extremely poised interviewer. You're doing very well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was fun. I love that. That's so cool that they actually got to play on the big piano. That's really.
They did. They did.
Um, you worked on like a lot of amazing projects, including like Pee-wee's Playhouse, which I watch on Netflix.
Do you?
Yes, I do. I Yeah, and can you talk about what it was like working on that? Because that's just such a fun show with like this wacky playhouse and all these like make-believe characters.
Well, it was, for me, that was one of my first jobs as a first assistant director. And working with Paul Rubens, who plays Pee-wee, he is such a genius. And he surrounded himself with these incredibly talented puppeteers that created Globy and Chair and all these great characters. And the dialogue was so had such a great double entendre, because it was suitable for children, but there was a little nuance of adult humor in there as well. And that's, I think, what made the show, and still makes the shows, so great. Because, as we know, if you're a parent, you sit in front of the television and watch the same show over and over again. But those shows are great because parents can watch it and the kids can watch it, and they both enjoy it equally as much.
Yeah, definitely. I love watching it on Netflix. Once I discovered it, I was like, my dad and like my mom used to watch it, but my dad used to watch it a lot. And once I discovered it and he told me about it, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this show. And I think I watched almost every episode of it, really.
That's fantastic. I love that.
Yeah. And you also worked on Charlotte's Web and Stuart Little.
I did.
Which are also books, which I've actually read and I've loved, and I've watched the movies, but they're definitely very, like, I love them so much. But do you have, like, a favorite movie or TV show you have worked on?
I think one of the most memorable and most rewarding films was Charlotte's Web. I think It's an incredibly beautiful story, and having the privilege to work on that movie, to be able to make a film that generations of children are going to watch and still love, and I think it's somewhat timeless. I think the performances are great. Dakota is amazing in it, but also the fact that the we had 400 pigs on that movie.
Oh my gosh.
We ended up having so baby pigs. I'll tell you a quick story. So pigs gain a pound a day. So we had week-old baby pigs playing the role of Wilbur. So within a week, the pig was too big. So we had to keep breeding and breeding and breeding and getting more and more pigs because, we don't shoot in continuity. We shoot out of continuity. So we ended up having 400 pigs for the movie.
Oh my gosh.
And Paramount Pictures ended up putting all 400 pigs in a sanctuary in Australia for them to be able to live out their lives.
That's so great.
Yeah. So, but no, it was a memorable film. And I think Julia Roberts was great as Charlotte, and she brought great wisdom and depth and you really felt her, especially that dying scene was just so emotional.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I think Charlotte's Web. Stuart Little was an interesting movie because we were creating another iconic film. We shot that whole movie on a soundstage. We never left the soundstage. We never went outside one day.
That's like really cool too. I love the part that you said of how they brought 400 pigs on. That's a lot of pigs.
Exactly.
And so do you have like a favorite movie or TV show that you like to watch in general?
Oh gosh, I like so many movies and so many television shows. Oh gosh, that's a hard question, Sienna. I think I have a favorite channel. Can I do that? Can I cheat? Okay. I like to watch Acorn Television. Do you know what that is?
I actually haven't heard of that.
Okay, so Acorn TV is a channel for lots of English and Australian and New Zealand TV shows.
Uh-huh.
And movies, and they have some wonderful things. So if you ever get the chance, you can watch a little bit of Acorn Television, and you can get another generation or another look at the world's television and other TV shows.
That's so cool. I can't wait to see what they have, what types of movies and television shows. And how do you typically find your next project as an AD?
So it's twofold. One is I have an agent. And agents are fantastic about finding movies, but also it's a lot of word of mouth and repeat people that I work with. There's a producer called Jordan Kerner who I met when I did Charlotte's Web, and then he created this fabulous family of crew that we then went on to do Smurfs 1 and then Smurfs 2, and then we just did Clifford. So, this is the nice thing about some crew members, that you end up becoming members of your family.
I always hear like these when the behind the scenes stuff, like people like work on movies and TV shows for so long and they just kind of become like a family sort of.
That's right. I think that's very true. And because we worked together for 9-10 months, it's really such a pleasure when we find people we really like and we want to spend time with them offset. So not everybody, but I'm happy to say it's the more than the less.
Uh-huh. And you worked on on location a lot. So do you have a favorite location that you've been to and you worked on?
There's a couple of unique places that I filmed. I did a film called The Mexican, and we shot in a very small town up in the mountains called Real de Catorce. And it was one of the most unique places I've ever been. To get to it, you had to go through a 4-mile tunnel not big enough for trucks, so only cars and donkeys and carts. So that was interesting. And I think the best part about being an assistant director is that we get to travel the world, and we get to go to amazing places. Like I was saying, in Paris, going to the Paris Opera House, and going to the Notre Dame, and most cities that I go to right now. I'm in Atlanta on a new Marvel show, but we get to go places. So every place is unique and special, and that's what I love about what I do. And you get to meet lots of new people, and you get to meet people in home environment, and that's a wonderful thing about it. We filmed a film called Show Dogs. The director Raja Gosnell, who directed the Smurfs, he took us to Wales on the film Show Dogs, but the film was set in New York and Las Vegas. So we were filming Wales in England.
Wow.
For Las Vegas. So it just shows you you can go to some crazy places.
And I know that you're working on a few you worked on the upcoming Clifford movie. And do you have any insight that you can give the viewers or fans, or the fans, about what the Clifford the Red Dog's going to be about?
Well, I can't give you too many spoilers, but I can tell you that when you see the Clifford, you are going to fall in love, because he is so cute.
Oh.
And Darby Kemp, who plays Emily, is fantastic, and she really is Emily. She really took the part and has embraced it, and the bond between her and Clifford is heartwarming. So I think everyone is going to be very happy with the results of Clifford.
I can't wait to see it, and I want to thank you so much for doing this. I had so much fun talking to you, and I learned a lot.
Oh, good. Well, thank you, Sienna, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much.
All
Bye.
right. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Miss Allen. I had so much fun talking to you, and loved hearing about what goes on in production and on the set to bring a movie like this to life. And now it's time to search it up. Let's see. Oh, BJ Novak. He is a Smurf in the Smurfs, and he was also in The Office. Well, see you next time to talk about The Office.